Hi, this is Jeff with FrostyGarden.com, and it's been a minute since we've made a video, but we're starting to ramp up our 2025 growing season, so now's as good a time as any. And today we're going to be talking about seed viability, which is the concept of how long your seeds will be able to produce an actual viable seedling, or how long your seeds will actually last. There's a number of different factors that can influence seed viability, and so we're going to talk about all of those things. At the end of this video, we'll put up our actual seed viability charts, which will show you estimated lifespans for various vegetables, herbs, and flowers. And we also have an accompanying article, which you'll find linked down in the video description, that goes into this and provides those seed viability charts as well. First, it's important to understand that seed viability isn't measured in terms of absolutes. Seeds don't suddenly expire or go bad all at once. But as you push further and further into the age of those seeds and the expected lifespan of those seeds, what you'll see is lesser and lesser percentages of seeds that will successfully germinate and produce into a given seedling. We would describe seed viability more like a hill than we would a cliff. It's important to understand that biology simply doesn't work on precision or various clocks in the world. And also remember that any viability estimates are just that, estimates. You might see more or even less than a given expected viability from a given seed, and there's also a number of factors that can influence that viability as well. The overarching goal of estimating seed viability is simply to give the gardener a guideline to work with. First, let's talk about what influences seed viability, and probably the biggest among those is the type of seed that it is. And basically, there can be a wide range of seed viability that you can experience, everything from a single year all the way up to nearly a decade that those seeds can actually last. And it's the type of seed that it is, regardless of whether it's a vegetable, herb, or flower. In addition, your actual storage techniques can greatly influence the viability of your seed. Dry and cool is the golden rule when it comes to seed storage. But there's also biological factors that are involved as well, such as the health of the parent plant, the health of the flower or fruit that produce those seeds, and a number of things like disease and other factors that can influence the quality of a given seed. Some seed providers will use treatments in order to extend the viability of a given seed. You might have seen the practice of pelletization, which aids in the handling of seeds, making them larger, but that also can influence viability because it essentially protects the seed. There's also a number of given treatments that can be applied to given seeds that will be mostly aimed at increasing that viability. When it comes to seed viability, there's also the matter of law. At least in the United States, a number of U.S. states have passed laws regulating the minimum percentage of seed viability that any given seed vendor can produce. And this is really crucial for food security because if you end up selling older seeds that won't successfully germinate, you could greatly impact food production within the United States. So it serves a strategic goal to guarantee food security, to have minimum regulations for a given seed's viability. As a general rule, you can expect about 75% germination rates or better from any newly purchased seed, regardless of where you purchase if you're buying in the United States. And you might have received seed packets that have a low germination statement on them. And typically it's a sticker that is applied to the seed packet that says maybe 50% of the seeds will produce or germinate. And basically this is to comply with those state laws and ensure compliance with the minimum germination requirements that are required for seed viability. We mentioned that seed storage methods can greatly influence seed viability as well, and that dry and cool is the golden rule. And what we mean by that is that temperatures in the range of about 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit are going to be best, and you also want a low humidity environment, generally around 30% humidity. And that will ensure maximum viability. However, you can also store seeds even at room temperatures, say between about 60 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and that will not greatly impact the seed viability that you can expect. What you really want to avoid are temperature and humidity extremes. So you definitely don't want very high temperatures, and you want to avoid low temperatures, say below freezing. Remember, humidity is an enemy of seeds because moisture is what is going to cause those seeds to sprout. So generally that low humidity is a good target, and you definitely want to avoid getting them wet. In addition, you want to avoid temperature fluctuation or the variation of temperature from very high to very low temperatures and a constant cyclic cycle of those temperatures. We really like to use a photo organizer for our seed storage, and it's the very best method that we've ever come up with. As folks that have a very large seed collection, it really helps us a lot with organization and reducing things like inadvertently buying duplicate seed packets, and generally it allows us to manage a very large seed collection, and we highly recommend this if you have a decent sized seed collection as your storage technique. So if you have some somewhat older seed, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's garbage and you have to throw them away. Remember, seed viability is a scale and not measured in absolutes. If you're dealing with some older seed, you can simply sow greater numbers of seeds, and this will help you ensure that you get to your desired plant targets. And if you have low germination rates, having more seeds sown in the soil will help guarantee that you actually get viable seedlings. As you push further and further into the expected lifespan of a given seed, you might need to increase the numbers of seeds that you actually sow. So, for example, when you're at the maximum expected seed viability, you might sow 2 or 3 seeds per plant that you desire to actually get into production. And if you're dealing with much older seeds, say several years past the viability expectations, then you might need to sow much greater numbers to ensure those targets get hit. As for what we do, we simply wing it based on the expected viability in our seed's age. We grow way too many seed types in order to test the viability, and while you can test the seed viability to get very accurate percentages of what you can expect as far as germination goes, that's not always practicable by every gardener. But in general, as a practice, we oversow the number of seeds in order to ensure that we get to our desired plant target counts. As a general rule, when we experience low germination with our seeds when we grow each season, if we notice exceptionally low germination rates, say 50% or lower, what we do is we make a note in our garden journal, which we use heavily in our seed purchases the following years. And so the following season, we have a note that says, hey, this experienced low germination, and we know to replace that seed so we no longer have issues with that particular plant type. It's very important for gardeners to be aware that there are some seed types that have exceptionally low lifespans. And when I say that, typically a season or maybe 2 seasons at best that you can expect out of those seeds. And it's generally good to be aware of these because you frequently end up having to replace these particular seed types in order to ensure that you have the plants that you want. In the vegetable world, a big one are allium, and these again will only last about maybe a year or maybe 2 seasons at best. And so this will impact your leeks, onions, and shallots. Parsnip is another one of them, and we often replace our parsnip seeds on a yearly basis just because these are direct sowed, and it's kind of a pain for us to revisit those direct sows over and over and over again in the early season. Another big one is corn. Corn can usually be expected to get to maybe 2 seasons at best, and then you really start to see that germination rate fall off a cliff. Some herbs can also be impacted by relatively short lifespans, and fortunately, for the most part, a lot of the ones that have short lifespans are also fairly obscure for most growers. So things like cumin, caraway, maybe lovage, stevia, those things have exceptionally low lifespans, and so you have to replace those seeds frequently, typically every year or 2. There's also a few others that have slightly longer time spans, such as cilantro, which is a big one, and rosemary, and those you'll generally get about 2 to 3 seasons before you end up having to replace those seeds. In the flower world, there's a lot of different types of flowers that have low seed viability timeframes, and unfortunately, there's just way too many for us to go through at this point, but we'll show them in our seed viability charts at the end. But in general, you definitely want to keep track of this on flowers because it can greatly diminish your expected germination rates if you get past or too far past that seed viability time. There's definitely more that we could say about seed viability, but we're going to leave it here and conclude with our seed viability charts. We hope that you found this video helpful, and if you have, and you have a like or subscribe in you, we always appreciate them. Once again, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.